I'm here with Justin of Killswitch Engage to talk about their upcoming new record, This Consequence, out February 21st on Metal Blade Records. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me about the album, the band, and everything you guys been up to. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start off by addressing the fact that obviously we've had a pandemic, but it's been 6 years since Atonement. So I have to ask you, how much did the pandemic play a role, not only in the time between records, but in perhaps even the record itself?
Yeah, it definitely had a pretty big impact. We had our first headline Atonement tour canceled 2 days in because of the it was that crazy week in March when just everything it seemed like every hour things got twice as bad, and the NBA was canceled, and like just instant like all these venue limits were coming in just constantly and shrinking, and we're just like, what is happening? I mean, we've all never experienced anything like that before. So yeah, that was right when that album was out and right when we were going to tour on it. So that definitely was a pretty strange thing that, not just us, obviously, a whole tons of people had to deal with it. So it definitely had an effect for sure. And then once things got kind of back to normal, it was a little weird because we were like, okay, well, what do we do? Do we keep touring on this record, or do we do something else? I think a lot of people kind of use that time to write music, but we didn't really use that time to write music. We just sort of started writing a little bit afterwards. And then tours just kind of trickled and trickled and trickled on until finally we had time to finish it. And then that's sort of some of the reason why it's been a bit for sure.
Do you feel like the record, a record like Atonement, if the pandemic hadn't been around, it would have been seen under a different light?
I don't know. Who's to say, really? I think one of the things a lot of people had time to do during the pandemic was listen to music all the time. Those people didn't really have, you couldn't go out and do a whole lot of things. So listening to music was one thing. So in a sense, it was almost um, like people would be kind of stuck with music. So we might have even gotten more listens out of it because of that in a very weird, a very weird way that we would never want to ever have happen again. But yeah, I don't really know. It's strange
Yeah, it's just that you guys
when
didn't
stuff
get
comes out.
to it almost feels like, you work so hard to put a record together and then with almost the end goal of hitting the road and touring and playing the songs on the album and it almost feels like that record was cheated a little bit. Maybe more than a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you get that sense a little bit, but when you look at it, how so many people were affected by it in so many different ways, it's really nothing you can complain about much. And we still got to do the big tour that we were hoping to do with August Burns Bread and Light the Torch. And amazingly, that tour was still able to happen with the three of us together, even if it was a couple of years late. So in that sense, it felt like it was accomplished. I think that kind of made us all feel like, okay, well, we kind of still uh, got what we wanted to out of this cycle, even if it took some time and some effort to get it done.
When it came the time now to write this new record, this consequence, did you guys have an idea perhaps of not what you wanted out of it, but what you didn't want out of it?
Um, I don't know. That's a good question. I think we felt like we wanted to all get together and write in the same room again for the first time in a while, and could be that could potentially be a pandemic influence because we had spent so much time apart. But also on the last few records before this new one, we had done a lot of the writing kind of separately and then sending stuff to each other. And this time through, we made a really concerted effort to all get together in a room and come up with stuff more spontaneously. Um, so yeah, in that sense, I think that's something that we definitely tried to get out of this record.
When it comes to making a new album, do you guys keep in mind the discography of the band, the desires that fans have of what the next record should sound like? Do you feel at times perhaps maybe boxed in in this pigeonhole that becomes defined by who you are and by what people want you to be?
We try not to. It's a thing that exists for sure, but we try not to. We have always tried to make music that made us happy. At the same time, we understand that we've been around for a while and we kind of know what our strengths are as a band. So you lean into your strengths, but you also want to try to push into some new stuff. And I think on this record, there's definitely some different stuff on the record. So we're always trying to write stuff that, we like, we have to go out and play it. We have to believe it and we have to play it or else it's not going to work. Um, so we always kind of keep that in the front of our thought process as we're writing.
That's one thing I noticed about the album. Like when I was listening to the record, you obviously know, man, there's certain guitar sounds, there's certain tones that you know you're listening to a Killswitch Engage track like 2 seconds into the song. You just know it. But at the same time, it didn't feel to me like this is a record that you guys had done before, if you know what I mean. There was a lot of new stuff on this album, but you guys didn't completely disconnect it from the past, which I think is a very important balance to find.
Well, that's great. I will take that review. Thank you very much. That's that's kind of exactly what we hope to do. We don't want to go out and sound like something completely different, but at the same time, we want to sound like us. And when the five of us get together and write music, that's what it sounds like, and that's kind of what we've always tried to keep focus on. Like this is what it sounds like when the five of us are making music. So, um, hopefully that came across.
At least it did to me. And another thing that I really enjoyed about the record is actually two elements of the design of the album that I really loved. One was you guys did a great job alternating different style tracks from beginning to end of the album, like putting a song that's heavier, more powerful, then switching it up, going to something a little bit more melodic, a little bit more emotional, then switching it back up again. Like the constant ebbs and flows of the record to me, it makes for a great listening experience. And then to add to that, the shortness of the album is just two great things to have together to have an album never really lose its shelf life. Do you feel that way?
Nice. I mean, the length of the record was definitely a pretty big talking point with us. Um, we didn't want something to drone on, and it's such a different thing now with how people consume music. Very few people listen to records start to finish that way. I think the metal community has a higher percentage of people that do that than a lot of other genres of music for sure. So I think that in the metal community, it still really pays to focus on a record as in, start to finish and the ebb and flow, exactly what you talked about. So we are very conscious of that. And we were kind of deciding between how long it should be, and we didn't want anything to feel like it doesn't want any filler. I mean, there are a bunch of shorter records out there. It's not that short. It's what's it pushing 40? Maybe it's in the high 30 something minutes. I'm not exactly sure. But it's not crazy long. But I mean,
I
what's
think
like Rain
37 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
37 minutes? What's Rain and Blood is like 28 minutes or something, right? Like, I mean, it's perfect. Like, no, you would never
Yeah,
change a
but,
thing
but the
on
way
that
you
record.
guys designed the album with those ebbs and flows, it even makes the record feel shorter, which is great.
That's fine. People's attention spans are shorter, right? Perfect.
Exactly, exactly. That was exactly my thought process. Because when you get to the end of the record, you feel like you've been listening to it for about 25, 30 minutes. It feels a little bit shorter. So you're not bored of it. So it's much easier to go back to the beginning and listen to the record all over again.
You are giving us the best reviews we could possibly want. Thank you.
Well, the other thing, I'm a car listener, so I listen to records on my drive to work and then on my drive home. And my drive is about 40 minutes. So I like my records to be within that time span so I can actually listen to the whole album. Because if it goes over that amount, I never listen to the bottom three tracks because then when I get back into the car, I start again from the beginning.
Yeah, I think 40 minutes is a sweet spot. I think like in movies, I think an hour and a half is kind of a sweet spot. And
Yeah.
I think movies get like too long. I think 40 minutes is a sweet spot. I think like I think like the when LPs were the or when vinyl was the main medium for records, I think those records were really super strong. When CDs took over and people could put more on CDs, I think there are great albums, but I even think some of the best albums in the 90s, like the heyday of CDs, I think every one of them would have been better if they cut like two tracks and it went from like 50 down to 40. I think every single one you can nitpick a couple tracks that just aren't good, but they're on there because they could be on there. But I still think that there's something about that vinyl 20, 21, 22 one side, 20, 21, 22 somewhere in that range. The other side. I think that's like a real good sweet spot for an album like.
From your time with the band, going back to the end of a heartache to now, how do you assess your own personal growth and then obviously the growth as a band, more so from a songwriting perspective?
It seems forever ago. Well, I mean, it is a very long time ago. Man, yeah, it's like it does seem like it's been a very, very long time, and it has been a long time, but it also feels like we haven't been dealing with reality that entire time. So we're still kind of in the same boat because we still get to make music, which is crazy. So, in one sense, you feel like when you were making those records, you were a kid and it was a different time, and now you're like you have to deal with being an older person. But we're like still making music and we're still getting to do what we got to do when we were youngins and kids. So you get that vibe. So yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but it's hard to connect from a time period that's so long ago in certain ways, and in other ways it's super easy because we're still playing a lot of songs from that time period, and so it's still kind of fresh. And I think that sort of helps when you come to writing too, is we haven't lost what it was like to feel the impact of those songs because we're still doing them and we're still trying to capture what we felt when we were writing, you know, Bid Farewell or something. So it's kind of still there because we we don't really get away from it, you know. If we were doing record and then not ever going back and playing stuff, or we play stuff from the entire range. So we try to keep that, I guess, uh in our pockets when we're writing new stuff, you know. What have we done over this entire career and how can we use all of that to influence this next record?
How much of the band as a whole has helped you develop your own style and your own way of drumming?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a totally different drummer than when I joined the band. I was super into really techie playing then, and um, now I feel like I can't play anything that I could play when I was younger tech wise, but I feel like I do a much better job of playing solidly and just consistently. So it was kind of a bit of a mind shift that is happening. I think when you're a musician, you're always making those shifts from things.
So
You
so
find something you're
basically
interested in, you shift from one to another.
so basically what you're saying is if Archspire was looking for a drummer back then, you would have thrown your hat in the mix.
Yeah, possibly.
I see
But
that you've
now
gotten wiser.
time
With
has
time,
passed.
you've gotten wiser.
Wiser or lazier. Take your pick.
Listen, I've seen you guys live multiple times. If there's one thing you guys are not live is lazy at all.
We're still jumping around somehow. We got more braces on. The brace per person ratio has gone up, but we're still trying.
The Tylenols or Advils after the show
Yeah.
really help.
Yeah, yeah, a lot more than before.
That's for sure. Did you ever think when you first joined the band back in the day that you would be doing the things that you guys are doing today? Like have the success that you guys have had as a band and touring, playing the biggest festivals? Did that ever cross your mind at any point in time?
I mean, other than dreaming, you dream about it, but I mean, yeah, no. I mean, this is crazy. It's all crazy. I know Mike's said before that when I wasn't there at the time, but when they signed the Roadrunner deal, I think it was for 6 albums or something. And they were all just laughing at the absurdity of signing a 6 album deal and how ridiculous that sounded to still be like 6 records. Are you out of your mind? And yeah, somehow still going. Yeah, none of us would have expected it at all.
You're one of those guys that got to work with both Jesse and Howard. As a drummer, more than a bandmate, what kind of differences those two guys give the band?
I'd say there's a ton of similarity. Even I don't think there's as many differences as there are similarities. They both have tremendous energy, and especially for live shows, tremendous energy, tremendous stage presence. Um, obviously, terrific voices. I mean, that's a given. Um, and yeah, it's tough to say because they're both um, they're both very, I guess, I don't know, the word I'm looking for is eluding me, but they both just sing from the heart, like both of them, and that's pretty much the main thing that you want. So um, they're both just very real singers in whatever sense that is. But it's been cool to 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 have that to hear what the songs sound like with each of them doing like the other ones. And it's happened kind of both times because at first it would be Howard would be doing obviously heartache songs and then forward that he sang on, but we also did, I've always done a bunch of Laborious Breathing songs, and then Jesse coming in and doing a bunch of songs from the three Howard records and then all the new ones. And it's a cool thing to hear different voices do them, but they both bring their own thing to it, and it seems to work for both of them somehow. Hard to explain how.
Yeah, some bands struggle to find one good singer. You guys have had two outstanding singers.
I have no idea. Lucky, it's all just luck. It's crazy.
Jesse on this album is phenomenal. His vocals on this record are definitely one of the highlights of the album for me. Like his range, what he can do, both on the heavy, aggressive side, but also on the more emotional side, really helps set the record apart. As a band, when you have a guy like that, does that give you a lot of freedom to really go far and wide in terms of the emotion and atmosphere that the songs can have?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think we ever think to ourselves, how are we gonna get vocals to match this? It's just not a thought we have. We always know that he's gonna come through and it's gonna sound great. And this one was a tough one for him for sure. I mean, he struggled with his voice at times and just not feeling super confident in some of the stuff that he was writing, but he just kept plowing through and kept rewriting and rewriting, and then eventually the end product um, totally speaks for itself.
I would agree with that. You mentioned how different this album is. I think if there's one song on this album that defines that difference is Broken Glass. I don't think you guys have ever written a song like that. That's such a unique track, not just on this record, but on the discography of the band. How was that song born?
That's actually a riffs that I mostly came up with, so thank you for that. I feel like some of the real weirdo outlier Killswitch songs can be attributed to me coming up with strange riffs. So so thanks for that. But yeah, I don't know, I just had an idea, something that was kind of real simple and super heavy and just really to the point. And I just demoed it and sent it to everybody. And it was at like a point where we were struggling a little bit to kind of find where the record was going to go. And then all of a sudden, Jesse sent back a vocal demo of it, and it was just like really aggressive and a lot of spit and anger in it. And we were like, "Shit, yes, that's it. That sounds great. Let's let's do that. Let's go that way." It seemed like it was a bit of a kind of a, I don't want to say turning point. It was a nice little nudge that we kind of needed when we were making this record, when that kind of like fire came out. We're like, okay, there it is. There's a fire that we need to find for everything.
Yeah, it's the shortest track on the record, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And it has a little bit of this heart for obviously people haven't heard the song at the time that they're going to watch this. It has a little bit of more than a bit, a hardcore vibe to it. When I first was listening to the album and that song hits, I was like, Is this malevolence? Did my record got switched around or whatever? I had to like double check, and I was like, man, this song kicks ass. You guys gonna have to include it on the set list for sure.
A lot of blast beats in it, which are fun. I like blast beating. There's a lot of blast beats on the record. And
There's a lot of blast
yeah,
beats on the record.
probably the most blasts since Disarm. When we were doing Disarm, there were a lot of blast beats, and we were like, whenever we kind of ran into what do we do here section, we would just try to put in a blast beat, and it almost always works. It's like a little secret of that record. So there are a bunch on this one too, which is fun. There's some fun ones in that one also.
I don't think you can talk about the heaviness of this because that's the other interesting thing for me. The record is not necessarily consistently heavy, but when you get to the bottom of the record and the album is finished, you have this impression that the whole album is super heavy, and you cannot have that impression without your impact. The drum sound on this album really pushes the heaviness through. It's like you're in my face, like I can feel the air coming out of the drum kit and just freaking hitting me. It's such a powerful sounding record. How much of the production helped elevate that drum sound?
I guess that'd be all of it. Yeah, that's all Adam and Mark Lewis who mixed it. That's got to be all credit to them because
Oh, and to you, I mean,
I
you're the
don't know
guy
what I'm doing.
playing. Come on.
You know what you can do with sound these days. You can make
Yeah,
anything
that
sound
is
like
true.
anything. It's just me. I'm the same guy that played on all the other records. I just try to sound like me. So those guys crushed it on this one, and I think um, everything sounds good. Everything fits in where it's supposed to fit in. It doesn't tire your ears out to listen to it. It's like it's it's heavy and it's aggressive, but it's pleasing sounding. It doesn't make you tired to listen to it. I hope that's the goal at least.
That's how it felt for me. But I was like, man, these guys must have owed Justin some favors because they really let him like shine and give him some room to let his drums breathe a little bit. Because there's like you said, there's a lot of blast beats on this record, and I thought that was really cool. It just added a different level of aggression and intensity to the album.
Yeah, there's some hard stuff. There's some fast stuff too. That's that one other heavy one that uh um The Fall of Us is like lots of like fast blasty stuff in that one. That was a tough one for sure. But I think Adam had that beginning part and he didn't think we were going to be into it because it was too death metal-y, but we were all like, yeah, let's do that. We love death metal. Let's do that. And I think that's a good example of us just saying, let's try this, let's try that. Like, who cares? Like, that's what we want to do. We like it. We're going to do it.
I think you guys earned it. With everything that you've done, with everything that you have achieved as a band, I think you guys kind of earned the respect of the fans and the ability to kind of go outside the box whenever you want without people really batting an eyelash at it.
Well, they've certainly made us feel comfortable. The fans have stuck with us forever. No matter what we do, they seem to stick with us. So there's a definite feeling of support from that makes us feel like we're not going to lose everybody if we have a song like Broken Glass on the record. It's not going to be like, oh, that's it, they're done. See you later.
It's not going to happen. Dude, everybody wants to hear that song live. Trust me. Once they hear
All
it
right.
on the album, everybody's going to want to hear that song live. And speaking of live, what's your favorite Killswitch song to perform? Do you have one?
Oh, it changes. It changes a lot. It's like, well, one of them, even after all these years, is still Rose of Sharon is still one of my favorites to play. And a lot of the favorites are because um, of the crowd reaction, really. So when we do that one, it's always got it. Everyone is stoked to hear that song. And it's just a fun one. Drumming wise, it's super simple yet driving and really just there's there's a physical thing with drumming because it's such a physical thing that it just feels good to do it sometimes. Like just feels good to play that song. It's a nice tempo, all of that's great. And then there are other ones we've played um not a lot, but we've played Reject Yourself sporadically lately. And I really like that song a lot and I really enjoy playing that. So there's like the staples that are super fun to do, even though you do them every night, they're still a blast to do. And then there are ones like that kind of trickle in every now and then. And it's really fun to mix it up. Um, and those have been two of the ones recently that have, for me, have been the most fun to play.
It must be getting really hard to put a set list together.
Yeah, there's a lot of songs that are tough to cut, really, which is a good problem to have. None of us are complaining at all.
And you know, you can never please everybody. Somebody's always going to walk away feeling like you didn't play their favorite song.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? I mean, this you only have so much time. Nobody, but also nobody wants to see somebody play for 2 or 3 hours. Like
That
that's
is
the
true.
last thing anybody wants. And that's the last thing we want to do.
Well, the last time you guys played in Toronto was at the Phoenix, and something happened at that show that I've never seen happen at that venue in Toronto ever before or after. It was so the place was sold out. It was so packed and sweaty that humidity started to build up in the pipes above and rain down on the people in the crowd. It was gross as fuck, but
I remember that show is disgustingly
it
hot.
it was so hot, dude. Like it was hot. I remember I started feeling water on my bald head, and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And it's the humidity inside the
Yeah,
room that is just building up on the ceiling and then pouring back down. Crazy, 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 crazy show.
I remember that one. That was a tough one. That was a really hot when the air is super thick like that, and it's just like I don't know how Adam plays because Adam basically drips sweat when it's a cold show, and there'll be puddles underneath him. So a show like that, I have no idea how he can play a single note because it's just his fingers would just be sliding all over the place.
It was a great show. You guys and obviously the Canadian Icons, the Despised Icon was on that bill. I had a blast seeing you guys. Now, I'm not going to see you guys on the next headlining tour because you guys are not playing in Toronto, unfortunately. I believe you guys are playing Montreal, Laval, actually Laval and Quebec, but I don't think there's as far as I checked last, there was no Toronto show in spring of 2025. Big headlining tour you guys are going on. Do you love those long, this tour is really long. Do you love these long tour runs?
Uh, there's a limit. There's a limit to how long you love it. Um, but I don't think that's too bad. I think this one fits in pretty good. It's like 6 weeks or just under 6 weeks, I think,
The
maybe
6 weeks.
five and a half or something like 6 weeks. That's probably about the end of it. Anything other than that, I don't think we'd be too happy by the end of it. But
It's
you
a
go
great
home, you
lineup.
recharge your batteries for just a little bit, and then you can go out and do it again. But we know, I mean, we know at this point the record's coming out. That's when you do these things. That's the whole point of all this. Like if we were going to put a record out and then tour for a couple of weekends, what's the point?
Yeah, I agree with you. And on the description of the video, I'm going to have the pre-order link for the record, but I'll also put the dates so people can check out exactly where you guys are playing and buy some tickets and come and see you guys because it's a sick, sick, sick lineup. When you're on these tours, do you socialize with the other drummers at all? Like, do you guys like have like a little bit of a drummer buddy thing happening?
I think just in general, you just socialize with the bands. It all depends. It all depends on how outgoing everybody is. I'm pretty shy. I'm not the most outgoing guy in the world. So I I takes a lot for me to go talk to people I don't know. So I hope that comes off okay all the time. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's easier on Zoom.
Yeah, it's much easier. But this one will be really fun. I mean, you were talking about our record feeling heavy. I mean, it better because we're going out with three bands that are about 1,000 times heavier than we are. So we better bring it, or else we're gonna look pretty weak by the end of the night.
I think you guys are going to be just fine, man. I think you guys are going to be just fine. You guys are an amazing live band. This record is a really good record. I honestly like everything that I told you today. I'm not just telling you because you're talking to me. Like I feel that way about the album. I was really impressed with the record because to be honest with you, I thought I was going to get Atonement 2.0 or something very close to it. And you guys kind of broke that mold and went a little bit more off the beaten path. And I really enjoyed that. It was just refreshing. It's a very refreshing album in the discography of the band.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, that really, really means a lot. Um, yeah, it's hard to do. It's, it was challenging, and we put a lot into it, like we always do. But you never know. You can't control everything. You just do your best and you put it out there and you see what happens. Um, we thought when we got finished with it, we thought, okay, this is good. It's not. We didn't feel like we were repeating ourselves too much, and we didn't feel like we didn't take chances. We felt like we did the right thing. So Thank you. That's very helpful. A lot of people haven't heard it yet. We don't really know. We haven't played any of the songs yet, so
I feel
we haven't been
super
able to
lucky,
gauge
man.
response
I'm
yet. So
super lucky that I got the record this early in advance. I mean, like almost 2 months before the release. So
yeah,
I consider myself blessed to have the opportunity to play that record on my drive to work. It definitely made my drive a lot better.
we're in prime leak territory right now. So make sure no one's in your back seat, like just sort of voice recording it and putting it
Oh,
out there.
I was looking everywhere to make sure nobody was getting any sound, like it wasn't leaking to somebody else's Bluetooth or some shit like that.
Yeah, right.
You got to take this stuff seriously these days. You never know. Like next thing you know, there's a drone flying over me and capturing the sound. I don't know. You just gotta be super careful. Justin, thank you very much for taking the time this evening to talk to me about the record and about the band and about your drumming. I wish you nothing but the best with the release of the record and with that 6 week long headlining tour where you guys are going to decimate at every single stop.
Thanks. We hope to get back to, we love Toronto. We hope to get back in that area soon. I'm sure we'll be there. I mean, a lot of times when a tour doesn't go someplace, it's because it's going to go someplace. It's going to go to that place soon.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you avoid it. So I'm sure we'll be there soon. Toronto's always been wonderful to us. So can't wait to be out there and playing a bunch of these songs.
I can't wait to see you guys. I promise I won't bother you because I know you don't feel very comfortable talking to strangers. So I'll keep my distance.
No, we know each other now.
That's true. But still,
That's
I
fine.
don't want to make anything awkward. So I'll just wait.
I do just fine with that.
Okay,
Don't worry
okay,
about it.
perfect, perfect. So we'll be both awkward with one another. We can talk about our beards and we can talk about oils and things like that that have nothing to do with
Yeah,
music.
the curse of genetics.
It sucks, dude. Hair disappears here, but shows up in other weird places, I must tell you.
And here's my main gripe. Why does it have to be bald and gray? Like
Yeah.
I'm not quite. Why can't it just be one or the? I could deal with one or the other, but this is getting white real fast, and it's just really bumming me out. It can, just pick one of them. It shouldn't be both.
For me, it happened. I'm not saying that one is related to the other, but when I got married and I bought a house, both things kind of happened simultaneously. So there might be a correlation between those actions that I took in my life and this. So you never know.
Maybe it's possible.
Justin, thank you very much for your time, man. I'll see you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Take
Take
care.
care, man. Bye.